in Iraq, we really started lightning warfare. We could clear 100 buildings in a night. There was nobody or nothing that could actually stop us from doing that. The American warfighter today is the finest warfighter in the world. So I was a welder and a mechanic, and I did that for a few years. And I always knew I would join the Army. I always knew I'd serve my country, but I just didn't know when that was going to happen or how it was going to happen. I was 20 years old. I was working in these shops, dirty like a coal miner every day. My hands are cut, you know, stained black from working on stuff every day. And I just figured, you know, this isn't something I can do for 20 years. This isn't really the life I think I want to live. I decided I was going to join the Army, I decided I was going to join the Air Force, so I went to the Air Force recruiter. I took the test, and I figured I'd be a jet mechanic, right? Because I'm a mechanic and a welder now, and I work on trucks. Like, I figured if I worked in an airport, that'd be like a good job when I got older. So I wanted to be a jet mechanic. So I took the ASVAB, I took all the tests, I went back to the Air Force recruiter, and he was like, well, son, you know, and I knew once he said son that this was going to be, the bad news was coming. He's like, son, have you talked to the Army or the Marine Corps yet? And I'm like, no, I want to be a jet mechanic. He was like, well, your scores are only high enough to be admin in the Air Force. And I'm like, okay, admin, like, what's that? He's like, well, you type memos, you might do some type of awards for guys. I was like, just thinking to myself, a secretary? I scored high enough to be a secretary? I'm a welder right now. How could I not score high enough to be a welder? So he's like, son, have you talked to the Marine Corps or the Army yet? So that night, one of my buddies was a ranger in the Army, and he was like, being a ranger was excellent. You wake up and you run 7 miles, and he gives me the hoo-hoo speech, and I'm like, yeah. So I go to the Army recruiter, and I was like, I want to be an Army Ranger. And again, I get the son speech. Son, do you know what Army Rangers do? I'm like, no, sir. And he's like, have you seen the video? No, sir. Do you want to see the video? No, sir, I want to be a Ranger. So it was kind of like, hey, Bob, come here. This guy wants to be a Ranger. Ha, 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 ha. And they laughed at me, signed me up to be 11 X-ray, which was a Ranger. I was almost 21 at the time, and went through basic training. Basic training, you know, being a little bit older, and I was 20 when I went through basic training. It wasn't really, you know, that 2 years, that's a lot of maturity. I didn't know that then, and you know, the drill sergeants always depended on me to get stuff done. And it's not like I was the butt kisser. Like, I did more push-ups than anybody, generally speaking. You know, I was always a squad leader in charge, and I think it was a maturity thing. So basic training was fairly easy for me. After basic training, you know, went to airborne school. Airborne school was a drinking fest. I did it all hungover. If I had to do it again, I'd do it all hungover again. And then, you know, airborne school ended. You know, you get your red beret after airborne school. I'm incredibly proud. I'm airborne now. You know, I'm second generation airborne. My grandpa was a World War II paratrooper, and the Ranger cadre show up. All the guys going to rip, come here. And we kind of go over by the Ranger cadre. They rip off guys' red berets, throw them on the ground, stomp on them. Like, still to this day, I don't have mine. I don't know where it went. The guy stomped on it. And then they're like, throw your bags in the truck. So we put all our duffel bags, and you know, at this point in training in the Army, all I had was my 2 duffel bags. They drive off in the truck, drive off with my 2 bags, and everyone's standing there. They don't say nothing to anybody. So it was like, I think we're supposed to run after our stuff. And they drove across post, made us run after our bags until they got to the barracks. And then RIP was an incredible eye-opener, which the Ranger Indoctrination program, it was no joke. You know, basic training, kind of a joke, kind of a good time. Airborne school, really good time. Nothing really hard, a lot of drinking, a lot of hangovers. RIP no joke, like brutal. Every day was the Ranger standards. You know, I don't think I struggled any more than anyone else, you know. I just kind of hung it in there, and I seen stuff I had never seen before, you know, 5-minute miles for 6 miles. I didn't even know a person could do that, let alone me trying to follow, you know, catch this guy. So RIP was no joke. I passed RIP. I asked to go to 1st Ranger Battalion. I got what I wanted, and I got the Ranger Battalion. So, you know, I was in Ranger Battalion. Guys were going to selection courses, and, you know, I thought, you know, being a Green Beret, that might be real cool. And, you know, in my day, there wasn't the stuff on the internet. There was no internet, actually. There wasn't the stuff you hear now, so it was really a leap of faith. And I had a good buddy that went, and I was like, hey, what was Special Forces selection like? And the best answer, best advice I ever got was from him that day. And he said, there's nothing any day that you couldn't do. And I was like, huh, that seems logical. So every day I was in selection, I just told myself, there's nothing that's gonna happen today that I can't do, and I just kept going. SFAS, SF selection, was another eye-opener of a different sort. You know, you had the individual stuff. It starts out individual, kind of field skills, which as a Ranger I had already mastered. And then it gets to team week. And this is where, you know, 12 guys get together. You carry a log, we gotta, you know, move a barrel 12 miles today. Like, who does this, you know? One of the days they give you a Jeep and it's missing a wheel. Like, what are we gonna do with this, right? So really problem solving at its best. And in my selection course, my team was incredibly weak. Like, there was 1 or 2 of us on my team that were good, and the rest of the guys were just complete pussies. And I think most of them failed. I think only me and that guy out of my team passed. Yeah, so we finished out in selection. They called me 0 man. You know, there's a road march at the end. I came in from the road march, and you know, found out like I was the first one in. Went to the Q course. The Q course, you know, I was 18 Charlie, which is the demo guy, the engineer by trade. Man, the engineer course was a blast. We blew stuff up. We blew a 5-ton truck so high you couldn't even see it till it started to come down. Learned a lot, you know, and I got to my first SF team. I was in 7th Group. We deployed to South America. My first trip was El Salvador. El Salvador at the time was just kind of over the war in El Salvador, so they were kind of just getting back to normal from the war. So really good experience for me to see guys that were, you know, combat veterans, Special Forces combat veterans from another country, and kind of an eye-opener to me. I did my time on a team, and then I thought, you know, like those unit guys, that would be pretty cool. So I decided to go to unit selection. Unit selection, again, its own unique animal. I had no issues with it. I just kind of hung in there every day and just figured, you know, I kept telling myself, hey, nothing's gonna happen today that I can't do. Just went through every day. Finally, one of the last days, I was on a truck. They drove me back to the barracks, and I was thinking, well, I guess this is it, you know, this is where my journey ends. And then a guy hands me like 12 more maps. Like, are you kidding me? Like, we haven't used this many maps the whole time. What is going on? And, you know, because my day, no one knew anything about that. You know, there was no books written about it. There was no internet chatter of what happens. And, so again, you know, with final road march, I was one of the first guys in. I got a helicopter ride back to the barracks, and you know, as one of the first guys back, I just grabbed a bunk. I went to sleep, and I woke up and like the barracks was full, and I was kind of like, what is going on here, you know? Couple days later, the barracks just starts one by one getting just every couple hours just emptier. Like, where are these guys going? Finally, it was my turn. There was a board. You know, the board was incredibly brutal. And then after the board, you know, it's kind of so surreal. I didn't really understand it, but when I left the board, you know, they told me I made it, but it was kind of is just surreal. Like I really didn't understand the magnitude of what was being told to me at the time. And then, you know, I went around a corner and they fit you for all your gear. So when you come to training, you got, you know, uniforms that fit and boots. And it kind of sunk in on me when I tried on the old GSG9 Adidas assault boots. I'm like, yeah, the Army doesn't got these boots. Like, that's kind of when I tried on those boots. I hadn't heard about those boots and heard rumors about those boots, but I didn't know. And when I tried those boots on, that's when I kind of know, like, yeah, this is kind of for real. You know, shortly after September 11th, 01, I was deployed to Afghanistan. At the time, you know, I had a little bit of war experience in Desert Storm, but nothing like what was going on. You know, we were in the Tora Bora Mountains, the Battle of Tora Bora. It's kind of famous battles today's day and age. But you know, we get up to the top of the mountains on that first day, and there is just rounds going off, explosions, dust everywhere, kind of chaotic. Couldn't really tell who was doing what, where, and why. And we were on the top of the mountain. I was with another guy. You know, the other guy I was with was a Panama vet. I was like, well, he's seen combat before, you know, like, and then there's explosions and people are running behind us. And so I was just kind of curious, like, is this incoming fire or outgoing fire? Like, I'm not sure what's going on here. Iraq kicked off early 03. We were some of the first guys on the ground. And man, you know, compared to Afghanistan, like, you know, I'm eating rice and flies for meals, you know, crapping in a hole in the ground, lucky to get a shower, you know, just hoping the water I drank didn't make me sick in Afghanistan, to I lived in Saddam's palace. I washed my face in a gold sink. I had a 6 shower head shower. Like, I didn't even have this stuff in my house. So, you know, my first day in Iraq, I was like, this is how you war right here. Let me get more hot water in the gold sink. So Iraq was just textbook war. You know, Afghanistan, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, if the enemy was 2, the mountains were a 10. We're fighting at a 12 in Afghanistan. Iraq, the enemy, you know, might have been a 4, but the terrain was also a 4. So everything was just easier. I think in Iraq, we really started the pressure of the kind of like lightning warfare, as we just started hitting targets because we had nothing opposing us, and we could hit 10 in a night, 20 in a night. We could clear 100 buildings in a night. There was nobody or nothing in Iraq that could actually stop us from doing that. And you know, I believe the Iraq War set an unprecedented pace in history. And it was because, you know, we went from the most difficult situations of just trying to figure out how we're gonna pull this off to, yeah, couple little birds, couple armored vehicles, we'll be there in 20 minutes, you know, whole thing will take an hour. So, you know, we kind of adapted into a much faster paced warfare. And, you know, again, like, I think it's just unprecedented. The American warfighter today is the finest warfighter in the world, and it boils down to a couple reasons. First off is money. No country spends as much money per soldier as we do. You could be great in all the basics, but without the technology, it's really hard to conduct that lightning warfare that America likes to do. You know, other foreign services, other, you know, foreign special operations, they can't compare, and it boils down to how much money we spend per troop. And, you know, the American warfighter learned a ton of really hard lessons learned, has adapted and overcome in the past few years to where, you know, the force is stronger, more experienced now than ever. You'd be foolish to fight us in land warfare.